Welcome back to the Michael Batson Show. Today I will be discussing three iconic football programs in college football, and it is obviously Texas, USC, and Notre Dame. And these three schools are like how, two of the three have new coaches this year. Two of the three have are going to be switching conferences as USC and Texas and Notre Dame could. But they're very like, as obviously they have great history. But my question today is, who will have the best season this year of these three teams? And I'm not saying the next championship. I'm saying this year alone, who will have the best season. So I'm gonna do a little rundown of each team. So first, I'll start off with Notre Dame. So Marcus Freeman went up to head coach this year, obviously replacing Chip Kelly. He went to LSU. He was a defense coordinator last year. He was really good. He held teams to 10 points per game, and then he got moved up because Chip Kelly went to LSU. Notre Dame have recruited exceptionally well this year. I think Marcus Freeman is a good hire. He's from Notre Dame. He knows the system. He's a good guy, and I think he recruits well as this year. And their offensive power is there, right? They have Chris Tyree and Lana Diggs, the 1 and 2 punch. Chris Tyree, he showed sparks of really a skill player last year, especially in the bowl game last year versus Oklahoma State. He had a touchdown, but good offensive line too. Last year, they had a good offensive line. This year, 4 of the 5 starters are returning, and they have the second best offensive line in the country this year coming to them. And last year, it was a bread and butter, was a run game and offensive line, hard Big Ten football, and I think it's going to be the same this year too. They have 2 good running backs, and they have a good offensive line. And then the big question, Jack Cohen is not there anymore. He went to Wisconsin. Then he went to obviously Notre Dame. He had 2 good seasons with them, and the person that will be replacing him is Tyler Buchner. He's an athletic kid who's a big time recruit. He's going to be a sophomore this year, and I think he's going to be pretty good. But obviously, first game versus Ohio State in Columbus, that's going to be a hard one. As a QB that have never started before, but my main thing this year is they have a good team, they have a good coach, a pretty good QB. They have a fine defense, nothing to write home about, but their schedule is tough. They have first game at Columbus. That's, pretty impossible to win, I think, with the QB that have never started a game in Columbus with a second-year CJ Stroud. That's hard. And then you've at North Carolina, at home against BYU, at home against Stanford, home against Clemson, away at USC. First Columbus, USC, and Clemson, 3 of those could easily be losses if you don't play your best. USC we'll talk about later, but, Clemson with Dabo and second year of DJ Uiagalelei, Dabo feels good about him. Columbus, CJ Stroud, and then the other 3 games, Stanford, BYU, Carolina, they could easily lose those 3. Those 3 are always, never top 5, but always consistent programs. So they have a really tough schedule. So I think, this year they'll win, a good amount of games. Obviously, they'll make a pretty good bowl game. But with the first-year QB that have never played before, first-year coach, and a tough schedule, I think will be hard for them to make 10 wins. I think 9-3 is a good projection for them. Now USC, Lincoln Riley obviously came to USC this year, and unlike Freeman, he's coached before, right? He's been at Oklahoma for years. He's an experienced coach. Caleb Williams, they have a QB. He was from Oklahoma, and Lincoln Riley's from Oklahoma, so there's a connection there. They have Jordan Atkinson. Jordan Atkinson had 1,600 yards last year, second best for a returning wide receiver, other than Ohio State receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba. And they have Travis Dye, the transfer that was from Oregon last year. He had some injuries, but he had a good game versus Ohio State, and he had a few touchdowns. So he's good. So their offense is really good. They have good skill players. But there's defensive concerns here, right? Last year they let up 167 rushing yards last year, and last in Pac-12. They have a new defense coordinator, Alex Grinch. People are high on him, but their schedule is pretty easy, right? They have last game is home against Notre Dame, and then they have two other games: away UCLA, away Stanford. So I think they need to go undefeated to get a spot in the college football playoff, because Notre Dame is a big win, but if you lose to Notre Dame, there's not enough there's not enough meat on the bone, per se, to get you to say, well, we lost Notre Dame, but we also won versus this and this. UCLA and Stanford are good, but they're not good enough programs to have one bad loss, and then those are your other two losses to back up on and say, we're 11-win team. You have to be 10-win team. You have to be 11-win team, I think, if you're USC. But their schedule, they're not even away at Notre Dame. They're home. So I think they have a good chance of being the best team of this group of three. And I think this is why they're going to the Big Ten. Other than the money, and the projections, it's better competition. Every day, you have Penn State, Michigan, Iowa, Wisconsin, obviously Ohio State. 7 or 8 teams, and you play, a good team maybe every week, every other week in conference play. They have 3 good games, and Big Ten, 10-1, 11-1, you're in 1 loss, and everything else you win, you're automatically in the college football playoff. 10 wins, 2 losses, you won the Big Ten title. Maybe you can make it, but this, especially for the SC, the Pac-12, you need to have you need to go undefeated, if not have a close loss, very close loss, and a good loss. So there's not room to kind of wiggle around in your schedule. Big Ten has that because of competition, and then the last team is Texas. Second year with Steve Sarkisian, there was rumors that he would get fired in his first year last year because he had 5-7, and the defense was terrible. They let up 31 points per game and over 6 yards per play. And on top of that, it gets worse. This year they only have 4 defensive starters coming back, so the defense will be pretty bad, I think. To say the least. And the offense has power, right? Second year, they have Bijan Robinson coming back. He had kind of a letdown year, I'd say. He was pretty good, but he wasn't dominant like projections were. They have Xavier Worthy, which is really an X factor. I'm high on him. And then Quinn Ewers, the guy, he was 2019 number 1 ranked QB, a lot of hype surrounding him. Ohio State, at Ohio State, he didn't really play, so it's going to be a QB competition between Jackson Card and Quinn Ewers, and I think Ewers will win. But their schedule is so tough. They have Alabama, Oklahoma, Iowa State, at Oklahoma State, and Baylor. If they're not good, they can end up losing 5 games and go 7-5, because Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Baylor are always consistent. Mike Gundy never has a year where they're 6-6. They're always 8-4, 9-3. New Year's Six bowl game, or a good bowl game to say the least. Baylor's supposed to be good this year. Iowa State, they lost Brock Purdy, but Matt Campbell has a good recruiting class this year. And then Alabama and Oklahoma, are tough games, at home, but still Alabama first week. That's about as hard as it could get. So I think Texas look for them to go. 7-5. 8-4. Tell me what you think in the comment sections, because these are tough games. Alabama, Oklahoma. But this is a good question of, would you rather face at home against Alabama or away against Ohio State? Because Notre Dame's playing away to Ohio State. Texas is playing at Alabama. At home against Alabama. So 2 tough games for both teams. But Oklahoma with Brett Venable. I think they're going to be a sleeper team this year. They have Brett Venable. He's been, years and years of coaching. He's been the man under Dabo Sweeney. So interesting teams here. I think Texas will be third. They have a pretty bad defense. The QB situation. I'm not too high on Quinn Ewers. He's never started a game. And then you have a tough schedule for Texas with the bad defense. And then USC, right? You have a good offense, and then the defensive concerns. But you have Lincoln Riley here. You have ties to Oklahoma with Caleb Williams. You have a good wide receiver, good running back, and their schedule is pretty easy against Notre Dame, and just away at UCLA and Stanford. And then Notre Dame, they have a new coach, Marcus Freeman. They have a first-year QB, so it's going to be hard to win in Columbus. And they have a hard schedule too, with at North Carolina, home at BYU, home at Stanford, home at Clemson, home at USC. So I mean Notre Dame, if Tyler Busher doesn't play good and he's not great, I mean obviously it's going to be a loss at Columbus. They could easily lose at USC. They could easily lose at home against Clemson. The real story here, it's not Marcus Freeman coming. It's not the defense. It's if Tyler Buchner can replace Jack Cohen in a good way, because Jack Cohen was a good starter for 2 years. We don't know about Tyler Buchner. So some key questions in this year. Obviously 3 big program teams, big market. Everybody wants to see them win. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens to these 3 teams. Please comment of what you think will happen. Give it a like. Maybe even subscribe to my channel. And I'll be back for another video tomorrow. Thanks.